Alright, so this is going to be a recording of my process video, and it's going to be about splining. I'm not really going to go into the creative process here, so this is really just about how I use my tools and how I polish my work. I've already done the block out, which I posted on Twitter a couple days ago. So this is the block out. This is probably about the state I would have it in before I go to splining. This for a more complex animation like this, where there's like some spinning involved and there's like a lot of context, I usually do a more detailed block out just to make it simpler. And before I go into spline, I'm going to talk a little bit about some interesting things during the block out that I do. So for the most part, I think I probably just block out the same way as most people do, but there are some quirks or some like unique things that I might do. Is one that I space switch during blockouts a lot, because it makes it easier to to block out, to pose. So in this case, both the hands are attached to the hammer right now, and they're both in IK. So first, I'm gonna show you something here. I'm gonna bake down the hands. So remove those IKs, and yeah. So right now the hammer is moving by itself. Both arms are in IK. So this is the way I set up IKs. I don't use any space switch tools. I just use my own IK tool to make a temporary IK chain. So I select the clavicle, then the arm chain, and IK, and then do the same thing for the left arm. IK. So now I've got both of these in IK. You can see that. And now I need to set them both to be children of the hammer. So instead of parenting directly, like that is one way you could do it. But the problem with parenting is that now I can't control the hand individually. So I actually like to use my pivot tool for that. So select the hands, select the hammer, and then pivot. And my pivot tool will also retain the original animation. Yep, so this is basically how I had it set up before already. And then you see that I have a lot of keys now because I baked it earlier. So this would be really annoying to delete them one by one. Like I would like to do that before I spline, but it's really annoying to do that. So I have a tool which is on my Gumroad now, the removing redundant keys tool. So this one, and now you can see it's cleared all the keys that are equal to each other. So this makes it so space switching in step mode is not a problem, because I can just quickly delete them. So yeah, that's about all the stuff. Some interesting things about the rig itself is that I prefer to set up my rigs so that the spine is sort of auto-controlled. So let me move these things out of the way first. So you can see here, if I grab the chest and then move it, you can see like the middle part is also moving a little bit. It's rotating. It's basically like transferring up roughly half or so of its rotation onto that. So that way, I don't have to really mess with the middle as much. Like it kind of does it for me. Same with the head, because most of the time the neck, like for the head, the neck, it just has to be like sort of in between the head and the chest. So that's why I like to set it up this way. This is one I learned this from Richard Lico, who is currently the animation director at Polyarc. And yeah, there's several other techniques that I learned from him, which I'll get into later. So I'm gonna go back to where I had the file before, just because it was a little bit cleaner than what I've got right now. Alright, let's check that again just to make sure I actually got the right one. Okay, so now we're ready to spline. So there's a couple of things about splining that is interesting. Most people dread the splining process because when you do it, you tend to run, like it shows like the gimbal issues and everything else that can come with that. So you can see here like the chest is kind of wigging out. over there especially is pretty jittery because there's like a lot of complicated rotations happening here. So there is one way you can actually make the splining process a little bit less painful in some cases, especially when there's a lot of rotations, is if you actually use aim space first. So aim space is basically a technique where you can set a control to aim at another one. So in this case, I set the hips or the cog to aim space. So it's pointing at this tip here. And then if I move it, you see it continues to point at that tip. So aim space is interesting because it basically turns rotation to translation. I'm not going to get too much into it. You can learn more about it again from Richard Liko's Animation Sherpa course, which is like animationsherpa.com. If you type it in Google, Animation Sherpa, you'll find it pretty quickly. It should be the first one. And then down here, space switching. Over here is $465. He's actually, at the time when I released this video, the prices should be reduced now, although I'm not sure how much it's gonna be. But yeah, that's a good place to like learn a lot of these space switching techniques that I'm gonna be showing in this video. Yeah, so aim space. Here, I'll demonstrate the benefits of it on the chest control here. I don't want translation for this. This tool is also available on my Gumroad. Like all the tools I'm going to be using today is on my Gumroad. So you can find that by looking for my username Tuxedo Pato Gumroad. And then I haven't uploaded the other ones yet, but they will be on here. Aim space switcher, that's the one I'm using right now. So aim space. Yeah, so now again, I have all these like extra keys that I don't want, so I can just clear the frames and then just clear all the ones I don't want, get rid of the redundant ones. And now if I spline it, you'll see that the chest is a lot more stable. Let's go spline now. So I have a button here for splining. You can also just press the spline button here. And I guess for this one, it didn't become as stable as some other. It's still kind of jittery there. But spline, switching to aim space is something I would have done anyways already, so I'm just gonna leave it like that. So this is the spline now. It's fairly clean. Actually, there's one more thing I can set into spline before I do this. Let me switch it back to step. The weapon will probably benefit a lot from being set to aim space before I spline. So I want translation, and then again remove the keys. Now spline. Yeah, you can see the trajectory of the weapon is cleaner now, so that actually benefited from it. Okay. So yeah, one thing you can see about my workflow is that I use a lot of locators, and as long as like I can keep track of them just because I'm the one setting it up. If you try using my workflow, like you eventually get like better at it, I hope. Yeah. Anyway, so let's start splining. Yeah, this is actually pretty clean already since I made the block out pretty detailed. So yeah, again, I usually like to start with the hips or the cog, because the up and down of the body is like the single most important thing to get weight. So I also like to do things like like in small chunks. So let's just go to like frame 48 here. Usually like dividing things by attacks is a pretty decent way to split up your animation, and since this is like 2 attacks, then it makes sense to do the first one. Yeah, so let's get started with doing the polish process. I'm gonna move this out of the way on another screen. Actually, no, I just close it. Yeah, so yeah, this is the way I polish stuff. Is like I use a graph editor a lot. It's very helpful to get familiar with the graph editor. And unlike most people, I also like to use non-step non-step or non-hole keyframes. And the reason I like to do that is just because it kind of feels more freeing to me, and that I can get like easing and like exact arcs and stuff more easily. I always feel constrained doing this. I don't know, I just like to do it. My coworkers hate me for it, but I bake it down before, so it's easier for them to use. Yeah, so I think this is looking okay now. I'm gonna give myself a couple more frames here just to check it. It's probably a bit harsh. Yeah, I'm not gonna like probably be too nitpicky about things just because I don't want this video to get like ridiculously long. Yeah, let's look at the translate Z now. Over here you can see it's kind of like uneven. Probably something like that. Doesn't need to accelerate here. And something like that. I think that white translation there is a bit sharp. I can probably just remove this to be honest. Oopsie. I can probably remove this. Make it a bit smoother. And then slow this down a little. I think this is probably also, yeah, over here you can see like the tip for the cog is kind of like slamming down really hard. I'm gonna smooth that out a little. Yeah, and like I'm really familiar with the graph editor, so this is why I can just kind of like look at things and like kind of get a good guess at what it will look like based on the graph editor. So yeah, I don't really know why like I'm saying that. I guess it's just one advice I can give that works for me is to get familiar with the graph editor. So I think that's okay now. Kind of don't like that pose there. Going to move this over a little. We can clean that up later. I'm also kind of limited on space because I'm working with one monitor. Usually I have my graph editor on the second monitor. Yeah, but I think that's okay. Let's do the chest next. So usually I work kind of like from the torso outwards. I start from the hips because the hips is like what drives all the motion. So over here she's getting pulled by the hammer, so it's kind of like jerk forward. That is really awkward. Animations with a lot of weight is often a little bit harder to do than things where they're just like spinning everywhere. Yeah, but you'll notice like with aim space, I'm not like worrying about gimbal lock or like weird rotations at all. Like I'm purely working with the translation here, and it works because it's because like the control just aims directly at the tip locator. So that's one of the reasons why I rarely really have to worry about gimbal locking. Gimbal lock will be a minor issue later, which I'll explain it when I get to it. But yeah, for now, don't have to worry about it. Over here, the hips should probably start being pulled forward more. One thing, if you work with a floor plane like I do, and then like you often get yourself doing this, you can turn off the your turn on back face culling, and then the ground will disappear when you go through it. Yeah. Can kind of accelerate that a little. You can probably pull back a little bit more. Do a more let's see. I'll worry about like the arm poses and stuff later. Like that hammer should not be slowing down like that in midair, but I don't really care right now. I'm more focused about the core. Can probably lean forward more here. I'm a little silent right now because I don't know, I don't have much to say while I'm working on this, I guess. I wonder if this would have worked better as a stream instead. That way I can like get some questions. Let's see, maybe over here kind of getting like a bit of a busted spine. Alright, that's good enough for now. Let's go with the feet next. I also like to do the feet kind of like the second, just because like it helps with the weight to get the because the feet is kind of like what provides pushing and pulling for the hips. So one way I do contact is just by I pretty much just eyeball it, to be honest, a lot of the time. And what I mean by that is I just like over here, like this character, she doesn't really have like toes, so it's a bit, I can get away with a little bit more. But if I wanted to do like a more proper contact, one way I could do it is just by using what I like to call the ultimate technique, which is just key every frame here. And this works well for feet, I think, just because like usually feet contacts don't really last for that long. So I'm just like going through all the frames here. It's probably hyperextending at this point. Yeah, a word about hyperextension. Usually it feels kind of taboo, but hyperextension by itself is not really a bad thing. Like the problem that hyperextension causes is when you go to hyperextension or you're like on hyperextend, then you get like a knee popping kind of thing. But that can be pretty easily solved just by by manually easing in that transition. So over here, I see like a rotation problem, but I can go to my thing here and then die rotation. Okay, but yeah, like over here you can see I'm hyperextending the leg pretty much, but because I've keyed every frame going into it, then you don't really notice you don't notice the popping for the hyperextension. So you can see there now I've got like a clean contact. And then of course we have to check it from the side view here because it's probably going to not be clean. Yeah, over there you can see it's sliding now. So I guess this would be a good time to show the second method of doing foot contacts more cleanly, and this will now involve space switching. So I just created a locator wherever it is here. So now I can move this to the place where I want the contact to be. And the principle here is that you use this locator as a pivot point for like the foot control. So if I parent it directly, then you can see I can like easily do this contact. But I don't want a direct parent because I want to be able to control this by itself for one thing, and also I need to keep the previous animation. So the way to do this is just I constrain the pivot locator to the main control first, and then bake it. That gives me the animation on there, and then I can just I can either reparent it, and now I still have the original animation, or the other thing I can do is use my pivot tool to make this a pivot, and that gives me the individual control as well as the pivot control. Anyway, let's clean up this, and then you can use the graph editor for this. Let's see. Over here, while it's on the ground, you can probably make this a little bit smoother, and then just while it's on the ground, the XY should not really, or the XZ, like the forward and back motion, shouldn't really move much. So yeah, the rotation seemed to have handled itself pretty well for the most part, so I'm not really concerning myself with that. Again, I just baked it down, and yeah, so now I've got a easy foot context. I think that part should go in a little faster. Let's just manually do this here. Yeah, I think that's fine. Actually, I want it to hold on the ground a little bit longer because I want the foot should kind of extend out all the way, because she's gonna be keeping her foot on the ground as long as possible for stability. That's just body mechanics, I guess. And then over here, you can kind of stylize the up down a little bit. Yeah, and then one problem I see a lot is when things tend to ease going down. Like when something is falling, it should always be accelerating. So I don't want this easing here. That's where using the non-step keys can come in handy, because it's easy to just make it pop down, and then just kind of adjust this. probably come out a little as it's in the air here. So again, graph editor. I don't like that pose before it hits. Can make this a bit nicer here. Just delete everything and probably just raise it a little bit more. I think this is probably the X rotation. Yeah, X rotation will do fine. Yeah, if you click on the channels box, like on the rotation, they'll give you like the gimbal mode instead of having to hold R or E to switch to gimbal. And then the backface culling is not active here. And then lastly, I'm gonna take a look at the Z here. Do I want that slower or longer? Or quicker, I mean. Let's make it like this. Have her foot kind of sliding in. Over here, her foot should raise a little bit. Can just go in here and then delete the stuff next to it. This. Just grab a key from here instead of adding one myself. That's weird. Yeah, you'll notice I'm not really like following I'm not really following like convention animation rules, I guess. It's almost more instinctive. Like it's not like I don't really like think about like, oh, I've gotta make this arc perfect or whatever. It's more like if it looks good, it looks good. If it looks bad, then it looks bad. So it's kind of not really systemized. Yeah, over here I could also have her foot like kind of jitter here as it comes down. So let's just repeat the same trick about the with the locator for the contact. So something here. The contact point would probably be around here. Make this bigger just to make it easier to see. And bake it. And reconstrain it. Okay, and now I can, when her foot lands, what rotation am I in? This is not a great rotation. We're gonna use another tool here now, changing rotation orders. This is a tool that is also on my Gumroad, although I think Maya 2024 has this by default now, but in any case, I can use this to change rotation order without changing the animation. So I could set this to be like a more a simpler rotation order to work with. So it's really useful to avoid gimbal lock or to like get around it. Yeah, so I want her foot coming in a little straighter. And then when it hits, kind of rock it a little. And probably make it slide a little less here. Let's just kind of like smooth that in going in. Kind of want her foot to go in a little faster. make this rotation a little bit less. Okay, so I think the foot's pretty decently polished here, so I can get rid of that locator, and now I can go onto the other foot. I'm probably just going to be a little bit lazier on this foot just to do something quick. Like, I don't want this video to become too long as much as possible. So we're just going to do this one by eye. Over here it's raising up too high. Yeah, again, I'm using my so-called ultimate technique. Let me just check. Yeah, I thought so. In general, the toe should point about the same direction as the knee. Should be stepping here or step. And I want to kind of her foot doesn't reach that low. I'll deal with that later, or I might not. Honestly, probably people wouldn't really notice that her foot doesn't quite reach the ground there. Yeah. Like, I tend to put a lot of detail in my animation, but I'm also really lazy about some details too. I want her leg to go up higher here. Graph editor again. I want her leg to also hold a bit longer in the air. I'm not really a fan of that slowing down there, so I'm going to, if I pull this a little back, that's a really gross rotation there. How do I want to fix that? Let's just delete this, delete this. Move this over. And just like eyeball things. That's good enough, but it's also, you'll notice like it's very like stuck in the air. It just kind of goes up and down. I want a little bit of like the side to side motion there, so you can just like pick a direction. And I do a lot of, when I'm animating characters, I tend to do a lot of this like sort of knees inward pose. Okay, I think that's good enough for the leg now. Next we could either tackle the head or the weapon. I think I'm going to go with let's go with the head. So the head can kind of just be like eyeballed, for at least for something like this, because it's not really actually doing a whole lot. Just pulling it, thrusting, and she's getting yanked forward here. Kind of had like this slam of the thing. That's good enough for now. I'm gonna be taking it. I usually do like a final final pass to unify everything after I polish all the stuff. So for now, I'm okay with how the head looks. There's something about the chest that's bothering me though. I think that's a bit better. I feel like it's a bit floaty coming down. Alright, that's good enough. Let's go to the weapon next. So I've got the weapon in the aim space right now, and that makes it like really simple to just like control where the hammerhead is and where this end of the hammer is. So for the most part here, she's getting pulled forward, so I will do a pass on the arms individually later. Yeah, and at this point, it's not really like any specific tricks that I'm using. I'm just like using my intuition, I guess, I'm just like kind of guessing. And just because like I don't really have a real secret to like, oh, this will make my body mechanics better. It's just a lot of experience. Yeah, let's keep going. I need a drink of water real quick. Basically, so far the only tool I really use is the aim space, and then using the rotation order. So let's see here, it's kind of wobbly. So the hammerhead is like the main brunt of it. I can see the aim space is here. I would kind of like it to be at the hammerhead instead, because otherwise it's going to jitter like this. So what I'm actually going to do is bake this down, delete the aim space, and then recreate it. Let's see. If I switch to object mode, ZX is what I want. So right now I have this distance at 100. I want it a little bit farther out, like pretty much where the hammer's head is. So let's set it to like 140 or something. That's probably a little far. Oopsie. I'm not looking at my keyboard much. One more time. That's 120. Yep, that looks good. And now we could take another pass. See now it's obvious that the hammer's head is like wobbling like this. So we can just delete that. Okay, and then over here it comes out fast, but then there's another jerk going there. This should be a bit more gradual. Because like the momentum of that, she's like kind of thrusting it upwards, right? So this will probably take her arms actually a bit higher, because it's like kind of it's kind of continuing the momentum of her thrust. Go in. I don't really like how that's feels kind of like it's being thrown underwater. Let's make this a little more. Yeah, I should have picked a slightly easier animation. Yeah, and then I don't want the hammer easing down into that drop. And then over here, it's going to be solid. This hammer is heavy, so it doesn't really bounce. Honestly, this pose isn't. The pose is a little bit awkward just because it's like the hammer is so, or I guess more like the prop choice is really awkward because it's so big. It tends to block her entire view from the front. Like if I was actually animating an attack like for a game, I probably wouldn't really choose to do a thrust like this because it's kind of not very readable. If it's like a fighting game, then I might, just because it shows up well on the side view. Yeah, so you notice I haven't really dealt with twists yet at this point, and that's because the twist is kind of uses the aim space again, but it's kind of like a different technique. Yeah, that's not great here. I haven't dealt with the X-axis yet. Let's see. Move her back here. Yeah, you can see over there the twist of the chest is really messing up here. So I'm going to now tackle that because it's affecting the way my weapon is animated. Bake down so what I'm doing now is baking down the cog and the chest controls, and I'm actually gonna remake the aim space. So now this is a slightly more advanced method of using aim space. So you have the, like I said earlier, like the aim space makes it so the control points at it, but you can also control the twist of your, you can also control the twist with the aim space, and it's on. What I like about aim space is that it sets it to a single axis. You can learn more about it again through Richard Lico's Animation Sherpa course. I'm not really going to go too much into it, but the point is that you can control twist with a single axis like this. And then if I change the rotation order, so you'll see over here like that, it's gimbal locking because the X and Z are basically lining up. And if I went into the graph editor, take my X and Z, you'll see over here that that's like reflected in there. You can change the rotation order to something a little bit more more useful. So if I change it to Y, for example, or the YZX, now the Y pretty much remains, the twist now pretty much remains only on the Y. So now it's a lot easier to work with. So this is how I work with. This is how I can like get my twists really easily, or like how I can control them really easily. Because when it's on a single axis like this, then it's I'm not like having to fight anything or counter animate. So I don't know if you noticed, but it also did affect my chest movement here. So I'm gonna actually bake this down again and then set it to aim space again, just so I can clean up that bobbing. I don't want this here, so let's see, clean up this. Yeah, so I guess you can also see that I'm not like really concerned about having lots of keys on like baking stuff constantly, because it doesn't really take long to just clear out the unnecessary keys. So clean that up. Alright, now let's tackle the twist. Actually, I'm gonna bake it down again, because so the twist is on the single axis and is controlled through this main control, but the twist itself is not actually affected by like the it's not affected by the tip. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically like the twist here is, like, you can see the Y is still going this way, but the actual control is like turned a completely different direction, so that makes the twist kind of like unsynced. So I'm going to bake it down and then recreate the aim space once more, so I can get like a more accurate twist. And then again, I change the rotation order to get it on a single axis here. So let's look at my Y rotation. Actually, it seems to be conflicting with the X here now. Yeah, it's kind of fighting the X, so I'm going to switch it back, and I'll just do this in two pieces. I'll do this first part here. Actually, it goes, okay, the gimbal lock is pretty severe here. I think I'll just stay with Y, or stick with this one, and then just go through it frame by frame here. That looks okay. Over here I wanted to The hammer's not pushing forward enough. She already looks like she's being pulled, even though over here she should already be pulled forward. Yeah, so there's the part where I start like just going through it in every single frame. And I'm probably having a problem with the pole vectors here. Yeah, this arm is going crazy. Yeah, so I think another thing about my workflow is that it tends to be somewhat haphazard. I kind of just like do things as I notice them. Okay, I think that's okay for the hammer or for the torso. You'll notice that the hammer is like kind of twisting here. Weird, like the twist just like suddenly stops, and so we can use the same twist technique here. This one's actually on the Z instead, and it looks like the twisting is already pretty. Yeah, there's no gimbal locking on the twist, so that's can be a lot easier to work with here. What happens if I remove this? Kind of want that. Over here, the hammer should be lower, or the grip should be lower, because she has to like kind of lower it and then raise it up. This is a bit fast. I really hope this video is like coherent in any way. I feel like I'm just rambling. But I guess as long as one person benefits from this, then that makes it worth it. Yes. You'll notice like when I move the grip here, the hammer like slides a lot on the ground. That'll be something I will fix later. Okay, I've significantly changed like a lot of the motion here, so I'm gonna bake this down again and then recreate the aim space to work on the twist. This was, I believe, Z positive, and I want this to go 120. Okay, I'm gonna save just because I haven't saved yet. And that was rotate Z, okay. So over here, I was noticing that the hammer's twist was like really jerky, so when it lands, what's that? 0. What will 0 look like? I think 0's fine. Clunk. notice a problem. Yeah, notice a problem with the Z forward movement here. Okay, I think that's fine for the overall. In the interest of time, I'm not going to like be super super nitpicky about this. Plus, I'm actually also really lazy, and for the most part, I would pretty much call this good enough. But there is one more thing I have to do, which is the hands. That is one part that's not really acceptable here. Well, actually, to be honest, most people aren't really gonna notice this when it's played like in actual speed. But especially if you're like wanting to put something on your demo reel, you should probably pay a little more attention to it. Plus, it's not really too difficult to adjust. So I'm going to move this over here, give her a little more space to work with. Pretty subtle. Not sure how okay. That's not working. Let's see, how do I want to solve this? I didn't notice actually just now that this leg is probably moving forward a little bit too soon. Every time you think you're done polishing something, you notice something else. Sorry, I'm just kind of thinking about how I want to resolve this. Okay, I think I know what I'm gonna do. So you'll notice earlier when I moved it, like the hammer head moved a lot, and I didn't want that. So I'm going to do an advanced technique here with the aim space. So I'm going to take a locator and then move it over to the hammer's head. I want this to be a pivot point now. And now I'm going to transfer the animation of the hammer onto that locator. And now I'm actually going to take the take this locator and then make a reverse aim space. And then the tip will be this will be the grip here. So now I've got this. You'll notice that it hasn't done much right now, but what's important is see that locator is aiming at the tip now when I move this. So I can actually take that locator and constrain the control to it. Oh, this is right now this weapon is the weapon grip has been constrained to the a new locator that was created. So let me go back and do this just because it's confusing if I create I take the pivot that I want, I take the control, and then do the aim space based on -Z, because -Z is what's pointing this way. So now you see these two locators were created. One is over here at the tip of the hammer, and one is at the original control location. And I'm actually gonna take this, open it up, and delete what's under it. So all I want is this locator and this see this thing, like this giant locator still pointing at it. So now I can take the giant locator and constrain it and watch what happens. So it looks like nothing changed at first. Is that like it's still aim space, but what's important now is that this I can move this grip without changing where the hammer's location is. And the reason that's important is because now the weight of the hammer head is not affected, and I can move the grip however I want. And we'll see where that gets us. This will come in handy again later when I over here, and then when I do some things with context later. But yeah, now it kind of feels a little more weighty because like it feels like the hammer's head is like it's so heavy it barely moves because of how heavy it is. I'm gonna cheat a little and just kind of, maybe I'll even translate the clavicle a little. No, I'm gonna leave it. But I will rotate it to give myself as much space as possible. By the way, if you try to do a reference for something like this, be careful because you can like easily wrench your shoulder. Let's see. Where's the other pole vector? I'm just gonna clean up that pole vector real quick because I noticed it was pointing the wrong way. Okay. And then I'm also gonna I didn't specifically reference anything for this one, but it's like, I don't know if you've ever like tried to throw a really heavy rock or a bag filled with sand or something. It's based on that. That's where I like kind of learned the motion of it, I guess. Taking another drink. I'm out of water. Yeah, anyway, what I was gonna do next is now I'm not gonna adjust hand grips on this thing. So this is like something it adds a lot to a demo, to like an animation when you do adjust grips, but a lot of people avoid it because it's hard to do until you're familiar with space switching. And when you're familiar with space switching, it actually becomes pretty easy because like you can kind of like you can just like make the changes you need without actually affecting how the weapon is working. It's kind of yeah, a lot of weapon grip is really just change to a grip and then hold and change grip and hold, change grip and hold. So it's mostly just about posing. I'm not being like super careful with my posing here just because the interest of time. I just like let it. Did I not key this? Yeah, so over here where I was getting like the extreme hyper extension, I can fix that now. And for this part, I'm just gonna kind of like Actually, yeah, that is not great. Should probably be like this instead. I wonder if I should have rehearsed this this video before doing it. It might have made it a little more coherent. But hopefully the bookmarks should help you find what you need or what you want to know about. Let's see. Let's just call that good enough. It's kind of a weird pose, but whatever. Yeah, like most people aren't gonna notice that, so I'm not really gonna care. Yeah, I mean, it looks like she's holding it. And then let's make this pose a little better. Kind of want to straighten out her hand. It's not really realistic that she would hold both hands together like this, but it does. It would look a little better. Or actually, because I want her arms to be straight here to feel like she's getting pulled, but the problem is her left arm is already quite straight. And honestly, what I should do is just rotate this. Yeah, let's do that. Let's not be careless about it. Okay, and then and her arms should be straight here, so I'm gonna take that locator or take the aim space I made earlier, and then it's kind of fake it. Here I might just do this just to get the arms straight, even though her arm's she's not really grabbing it all properly, but I think it looks better. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, yeah, and then over here we can correct this grip a little. So using aim space, this becomes kind of like semi-cheap detail, but it'll really stand out if you actually have like proper grips and stuff. Her hammer's going through her leg there. Just kind of raise it up a little. It's just like something like that. Move this up. It's going too low probably. Alright, so now the left hand. wonder if it's worth straightening out her wrist here. Yeah, it's easy to do. Yeah, in general the wrist is kept fairly straight to the arm. So if let's just do this. Nobody's gonna see the thumb, so I'm gonna ignore it, at least for now. And then over here it's starting to hyperextend. We could get a little bit more space by moving her shoulders in. If this was not a robot, and if it was a human, I would have more space with the shoulder to kind of like translate it, but I don't really want to pop her joints out. So this, I'm probably not gonna be able to get enough space no matter what I do, so I'm gonna have to rotate the chest back. What did I just do? Oh. What am I doing? Graph editor? Okay, left hand. Move this in. This one I might just leave like this. Because that's a detail that nobody's gonna see. If you actually take a close look at my other animations, you'll see a lot of these things where I just like didn't really bother to actually clean it up correctly. Yeah, I go over here. Just gotta move this in here too. Just needs to like kind of get the impression that she's holding it. Animation is all about faking stuff anyway, right? Yeah, I think this first part is looking pretty okay. Yeah, so let's bake stuff down. Let's see, what parts do I need to bake? I need to bake the chest, the spine. Can delete that. This is attached to the hand, so this is used through the whole animation. Alright, let's go on to the next part. The animation itself ends at 160. I'm just doing this to make it a little easier to tell. Okay, because I deleted the aim space on the hammer earlier that I had used to set it to spline. Now it's back to being like this this like unclean jerky mess. But that's okay, we can fix it later. Alright, let's start from like frame 44. So earlier I actually polished from frame 0 to like 50 or so. But I actually like to, when I'm going to the next part, I like to leave like a little bit of the earlier stuff that I already polished, because I may need to clean up the transition a bit. So again, let's go. Let's start by doing let's start by cleaning up the cog. I'm going to set the spine to aim space also, just so the cog doesn't really mess up the spine. And again, it's gonna start with the I'm gonna start with the Y translation, and just kind of this. Easiest to just start with cleaning up the curve a little bit, fixing like any obvious pops. I forgot she actually hits the ground here. So she could probably bounce a little, and since she's like light and tiny. Actually, a robot will probably be pretty heavy, but we're just gonna pretend like she's light. I think she's kind of floating a little bit too long in the air. I'm actually going to take this whole thing and use the retime tool to drag everything down. Okay, one thing about the retime tool is it tends to, do you see how it's like now no longer on whole frames? I don't know why it does that, even if when I have the snapping on, but I can just snap things manually afterwards. Obviously this part, since I changed the timing of it, that part will still be in between frames, but I don't care. I might honestly do the, I think I'm going to do the return to idle separately. It's complicated enough to do it on its own. Okay, give myself a little bit more room. Can kind of smooth out this a little bit. And smooth that out. I can exaggerate that, drop a little bit more. That drop is like an anticipation for the lift. Okay, now I've done the X, the Y, and the Z, so I think I can do the X. This. See. Just gonna pull the hammer back. I'm completely ignoring physics here. Alright, I think that's good enough for the hips for now. I'll deal with like the this late. Well, actually I can do a little bit now. Yeah, sometimes I do it later depending on what the chest is doing. But for this one, I think it makes sense to do at the same time. Over here, I want this. I'm changing my music. Let's see. Let's raise our butt in the air just for fun. My brother told me I tend to like raise butts in the air a lot, but that's partly because I never get to do anything like that at work, so I had to make the most of it in my personal work. Okay, let's tackle the chest for now. I think it'll be helpful to do that. Over here, it's like this twisting is kind of abrupt, so I'm going to smooth that out a little bit. Actually, this Z movement is also so rather abrupt. Yeah, let's just... Here, this is really ugly. Sometimes you actually want like a little bit of jitters, but not that one. I'm not sure I really like how her body drops. You know, this one might be better actually if I just leave the cog up high and she just brings the hammer down like this. Yeah, I actually like that better. And then now she can like bonk. It takes some practice to be able to ignore like the hammer's awkwardness while working on this. I know some people prefer to, some people like to like hide unnecessary things, and that's fine too. Let's see. This is kind of bent a little much. My backface cooling keeps disabling itself because I keep switching the layout of the viewports. That head is very jittery, so I can actually use namespace on the head too. It's kind of act like she's straining to really lift that. Can the robot strain? I don't know. You'll notice I'm running Euler filter all the time. I have it on the hotkey. She put everything she has into that smash, so she's not even looking where she's hitting. She's just like slamming down and praying it hits something. She can check her results afterwards. And now it's probably too loose, so let's just make that transition a bit faster. Now it's probably too fast, and Looks a bit... yeah, that might look a bit more wild than I really intended. Wild as in like feral. Like it's supposed to be like uncontrolled, but it's like uncontrolled in a childish way, not in like an animal beastly way. At least it's supposed to be. Yeah, it's kind of hard because it's like I can't really give a child a sledgehammer and tell them to swing it, because that would probably be somewhat dangerous. So I can't really get like an exact reference, but yeah, I think that's good enough for the torso for now. Again, like I did earlier, I'll do like a pass later to kind of unify everything. For now, let's go with the legs. We're gonna do the ultimate technique here. So you can see it's hyperextending here, but I don't mind it because in this case the unlike that hyperextension, it goes like pretty smoothly into it. It's not like jerking like back and forth. So that's okay. Well, it doesn't really go in that smoothly, but it's most important that it doesn't like come out jerky. Okay, that actually might be a bit much, so I'm going to manually smooth it out. My coworkers once like made fun of me for having such a huge gizmo, and then I watch like people usually work with like tiny gizmo, and I watch them like struggle to make tiny corrections. So I got the last laugh on that one. Yeah, see how the knee's kind of like bouncing there. That's what you don't want from hyperextension a lot of the time. So there's one of those times where I start second guessing whether I should have just used a locator pivot instead of manually doing it. But I'm already committed. Alright, one more pass should do it. I think this is the pivot point is more accurately here. Yeah, so I'm gonna just go through, check it like a couple times. And now we check the front view. Wireframe view can be useful for this. So in this case, Okay, you know what? I'm going to use the locator method. Yeah, I think another important thing too, about my workflows, I don't have like a one tool for everything. Rather, to me, it's more important that I can like adapt like which I think it's more important to just be able to like look at a situation, be like, oh, I think it'll be more helpful to do it this way or more helpful to do it this way, rather than trying to find like a one size fits all kind of thing. Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people's methods or like workflows can tend to mess up, is like if you get too stuck on doing something one way, then it kind of becomes hard to adapt to unfamiliar problems. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if you get something from my video, it's to try and become a problem solver. I think that's a dumb way to put it. How can I put it? I'm trying not to sound pretentious. I don't know, I think it is kind of presumptuous to make like a video like this and be like, oh, this is I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Ignore me. Yeah, that doesn't show up really from the front view. I think we're gonna call that good. Let's see. Oops. So I haven't touched anything here really, so I need to only bake this part. I have a tool to bake a specific section. Let's see, I don't need that locator anymore. Use it. And now over here, one more pass on, just kind of correcting things here. I don't know if that leg should come up high or sooner. I think it can. So let's just take this and retime it a little. It's hyperextending there. And this should accelerate going in there, so I'm going to move this here. Want to hold that a bit more. And bring this in, bring it out, just to get that arc. And over here, it's going a bit straight. I'm just applying like basic spacing knowledge here. Like I'm like eyeballing it. If you can also like use motion trails if you want to do it more precisely. Yeah, again, my own workflow tends to really just be a lot of eyeballing stuff. You can see the pole vector's totally off there, but that can be fixed later. Let's kind of kick her foot out and bring it in and down. Over here, see how that there's also, again, the up and down is kind of linear. Alright, now it's making a nice hook. And now I can fix the, adjust the rotations. So I mentioned earlier the pole vector is off here, but it's probably this that's off, not the pole vector. Just kind of let it interpolate itself in. Again, knee generally points in the same direction, or the toe generally points in the same direction as the knee. It's not like a hard and fast rule, but it's a good rule of thumb. Most of the time your poses will look better if you do that. She's actually raising her leg too high here, or raising her knee. Kind of like flop her foot. I just realized I'm not on the whole frame here. Now this part is getting too stuck. See how it's pretty much in the same location here, so I'm going to change that. I think it's mostly the Z movement that's doing it. Yeah, just delete this and see what that gets me. Okay, no, now it's too linear again. And the endless struggle of spacing. Alright, I think that's good. Or at least it's better than before. Yeah, let's see the other foot. Which foot was I doing? That one, okay. Okay, so one thing I noticed already here is that, see how it's pivoting off the heel? This one will be easier to do if I create a locator and then put it here so that I can have it pivot off the toe instead. But I'm actually going to do that later. I'll just parent the locator for now. But before that, I'm going to... Actually, no, let's just do it now. Alright, I'm going to bake. So now I've got this locator and reparent it back. Okay, so she's kind of lifting her foot here. Let's just do this. I don't really want her lifting her foot off, but I do want it moving. I'll probably lift it a little higher. Yeah, again, I'm kind of like half looking at the graph editor and half looking at the my viewport to just get a sense of what's going on. Over here should probably be a bit more stable. And this over here, like this is totally not good. Okay, I think it's frame 79 here. And then this is also being rather linear. Yeah, this robot she doesn't have any toes, but we can pretend like she does. I'm not going for perfect collisions here. Start rotating here. I think I'm kind of starting to lose my voice a little. I'm honestly not used to talking much. Let's see. Over here, lift her toe. Over here, this should the movement of her body, she should really be moving more. Where's that rotation? All right, and then I think that's good enough for the ground when the foot's on the ground here. Actually, I can ease one more thing here. I can ease this a bit. And now the part where it's in the air will be easier to do from the ankle. So I'm gonna bake it up to when it lifts off. And now we can how high do we want? Let's rate her like really high. But we have to make sure it's not linear here. And then bring that in. You can probably also do some Z translation here. Let's bring it in for fun. And have it come out again and then have it come in. Again, I'm gonna be ignoring physics here. What's going on there? Okay, this is and over here, you can just do like a simple shake. Just like do that by hand. You can have it kind of like land here and then land here instead, and then kind of push out. This kind of makes her look a little softer. I'm gonna add another key here just to ease that in. Now the question is, should I bounce her knees or not? Realistically, she shouldn't really bounce because she's putting quite a bit. She's putting a lot of weight on that. Actually, no. Yes, no, yeah, he is putting weight on it, so shouldn't really bounce much. But I think it looks nicer, so let's just leave it in there. Over here, you'll notice I barely touched the hip control. I mostly just use that for adjustments because most of my posing is done with the cog, since I use like the aim space really heavily. But I will sometimes use hip controls for stuff like this. So do like the jiggles. I really like jiggles. Over here, you're kind of breaking the spine a little. I think you can do that. Something's off about it, and that's probably this, the X movement. Yeah, he wasn't pulling there. I wonder if it would. I haven't really touched the foot on the landing here yet. Let's just do that real quick. How far did I get earlier? I think I got over here, yeah. And have her like land here and then just spread out. I'm getting a double frame there. This is the one I want to remove. Maybe want a bit of a pause there before it comes back. Come out faster. The X rotation there is too linear. Is it X? It might be the Z. It's probably the Z. Yeah. Alright, the X and the Z are fighting each other. This might be a place where changing rotation, like putting it to a locate and changing rotation mode might be helpful. Because otherwise you have to like mess with these two. I'm gonna try it. See if it's doable. See, rotation. I'm really just trying to hold it there longer. I think that works, and then make this clear. Alright, and now, oops, I accidentally set a key, I think. Now I want to do the twists of the cog in the spine. So I'm gonna repeat the same trick I did earlier with with baking it down, and then recreate the space switches. What? Oh, I clicked the arm. Okay, so now I can do the twist. So let's see if this might work better. I'm just like checking the rotation order to see which one helps or which one's more useful here. I think this one is more useful for now. So let's do that twist. Twist. And then this can twist down. And get some overlapping in there. Alright, now let's do the chest. Let's see. Okay, that's really going crazy. What's happening? I'm gonna bake it down again, reset it, just because I think something's weird going on. I think it's just the rotation itself here is really strange. So yeah, let's just keep it like this. Yeah, let's go. Oh. impact. On this impact, her hand plants down here, so she's going to, her chest is gonna get raised. On this impact, she can keep going down too because of the weight of her heavy head. So delay this a bit. Or maybe I can keep this down lower. And make her head a little more stable. I think that the twist here is a bit late. And something that's useful to kind of zoom out a little. You get so caught up in like the main detail, sometimes I forget to like really look at the whole thing. Alright, I think that's good for now. We can take another pass later. So let's do the fun part here, the hammer. 120 is more ideal, and this is positive Z. Okay, so over here is like really jerky. So this is, you can just start by doing a big cleanup pass here. That's raising way too high. And then over here is like a pause. I don't want that pause. It should be smooth going up and down. Or rather, you just keep accelerating all the way until it crashes down. Do you see that easing there? It's no good. I'll solve the contact better later. Over here, that it's coming pretty abruptly to a stop, so I'm going to ease that. Ease. And I'm just changing my music. Okay, let's do this grip part here. I haven't saved in a while. Okay, so this should be pretty smooth. Okay, see how it's going into the ground there. I'm going to use the same like the reverse aim space technique I did earlier, which is create a locator, move it to the hammerhead, and then make that, bake that down, and reverse, include translation, this is -z, and now take this second one, delete, and take the hammerhead and constrain it. So now I can move this without affecting the location of the hammerhead. Yes, so you can also clean. The hammer's gonna be dragging on the ground, so you can just easily do a thing here. You can worry about the spastic spinning later. And then another interesting thing is now you can look at the spacing of the hammerhead, and if you look at the viewport, the spacing is actually wrong here. It's easing from this one to this one, so we need to move it back a bit. You'll see it in here. See how the distance between this one and this one is bigger than this. So yeah. Fix that easing. And then make this smoother, smoother. Yeah, aim space is like the biggest, probably the most powerful tool I've used like for animating. So I'm gonna thank Rick again for teaching it to me. Let's see. All right, let's do the grip here now. This twist isn't, like the rotation of this one isn't doing anything since it's actually just functioning as a tip. So I'm gonna take all these and delete them just to make it a little easier to see. Yeah. The hammer, the hand needs to be here. And you're gonna do like I'm doing like a rough pass on the cleaning up, and I'll do a better one later. It is already looking a lot better. As far as the weapon goes, her arms are still doing some crazy stuff because it's pulling a bit too far.